Tom, aka Jedion, here for Star Frontiers Gamer, and today is Fanzine Friday, and we have Star Frontiersman number 17. On the cover is a artwork by Ariel X on DeviantArt. He's been a friend of the Frontier over the years, just donating art for our covers and illustrations. There's not much action going on here in this particular cover image, but it's the lonely, deserted outpost on a deserted planet aesthetic, which is very strong in the sci-fi that I like. So I liked this cover. I particularly like the moonrise. It adds a lot of moodiness to the scene. On the table of contents, you will see a logo celebrating the 30th anniversary of the game. Circling it right here with the cursor. And this logo was created by Tom Stevens. He got permission from Wizards of the Coast to make a patch and to sell it at cost. I believe I bought one or two and then lost them and then bought another and can't find it. And I really wish I had sewn this patch on a hat. I might have been able to keep better track of it. I'm not sure how many Tom had made, but it's probably one of the rarest Star Frontiers items you can find, if you can find it. And I doubt many fans that bought them off of Tom are parting with them. First up is Monastery of the Divine Flame by yours truly. In the opening paragraph, has a flavor text stating,
"On Vulturnus, in the heart of the burning lands, where free phosphorus can contact air and spontaneously ignite, an odd group has established a peculiar community, the Monastery of the Divine Flame. Populated by mostly Ossakar, this monastic community devotes itself to meditation, austerity, and physical labor, all in the pursuit of a deeper understanding of the mysteries of the universe."
There's a paragraph on player characters being a member of the monastery. Benefits of being a monk are discussed. The reasons a monk might leave the monastery are discussed, as well as the possibility that PCs are just using the monastery to lie low and drop off the grid because they might have some heat on them. The hazards of the burning lands are reviewed. Most of this was lifted right out of the Crash on Vulturnus module. But other things are added, and there are 3 adventure hooks. There's a random encounter table for the burning lands, as well as maps for the monastery's 3 levels. Now, at the time, I was proud of this submission, but looking at it now, I have to criticize it as incomplete. The maps lack a map key. Like, for instance, you've got this vestibule, a hallway, and stables. Well, what's not clear here is that I just thought, well, the Allmore ride lopers, so maybe the members of the monastery would keep lopers in a stable. This main hall has a screened area for dining, but then there's this like worship area over here and a fountain, because obviously water's very much needed. Some kitchens, storerooms. These cells are not cells like you would imprison someone, but they're cells in the sense that monks in a monastery have cells. The flame garden here is open to the air. That is not obvious from this map, and a written description would have clued you in on that. There's a level 2, fairly self-explanatory common room, more cells, and then a 3rd level with a meditation area, private meditation area with, little mats on the floor to sit on and meditate. So, I look at this and I'm like, it's a little bit incomplete. GalactipediaNET by me again. The idea behind this was an attempt to add a quasi-Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and quasi-internet into the Star Frontier setting. It's a fully networked database that networks through subspace relays, and it connects to the local information nets. Game masters are encouraged to not just hand out handouts to the players, but rather encourage the players to have the computer technician see what they can dig up. There are fees associated with GalactipediaNET. The players will need to specify what they're looking up. Types and levels of databases are detailed as per the population level of a world. There are details on the types of information the PCs might access. For example, PCs looking to break into a location and observe a lock on the door that is a level 4 card lock. But since the planet has a light population code, its GalactipediaNET database is only level 3. It'll lack the schematics for a level 4 lock. However, had the lock been like a level 3, then the schematics would be in the database, and that would give them a bonus for attempting to pick the lock when they break into that location. To effectively work the GalactipediaNET into your campaign will require some prep. I would start with an index file of all the classified ads from the back of the Star Frontiersman. Just have them so you can just pull out and say, you got inundated with this ad. You were looking to rent, a hover car, and here's an ad for air cars, type of thing. So, if there's a misroll, maybe you give the classified ad to the player characters. It's not what they really want, but it becomes a flavor thing. Maps and handouts for the adventure will need to be prepped, as well as index cards on NPC stat blocks in case they look up the NPCs. And, I discussed the level of information you would get from the level of database. So, with a level 6 database, you would get the full stat block, the background, what they usually carry for equipment. You would get that. You get less as the levels go down. So that, it gives you a little bit of an ability to tailor it. But there's a value to the player characters consulting GalactipediaNET. Part of game prep might include some news blurbs. For example, the players might wish to know about space fleet deployments. But this would rightly be judged to be classified information. But they might see a news story on battleship Admiral Morgaine arriving at the planet and authorizing shore leave for crew. This would then tell them that there is a heavier than normal space fleet presence in space around the planet. Because you would expect not just the battleship, but you would expect all its escorts, a handful of destroyers or frigates, some assault scouts, quite possibly a strike carrier added into the mix. So you would expect the screen and the escort vessels would be traveling with a task group or strike group, and certainly a battleship would warrant the presence of a task group or a strike group. I would even encourage the players to look up things on their smartphones. For instance, there is a Star Frontiers wiki, or they might have the Alpha Dawn or Nighthawks rulebook at the table, and these things would be baseline knowledge. They could look those up and not bother the game master about them. They could totally, anything in the Star Frontiers wiki, I would just say, go ahead, look it up on your smartphone at the table. And if that gives you an edge, fine, so be it. Finally, there's some discussion of adventure possibilities in this article. Next up, we have Zebulon's Guide to Cults, Cadres, and Criminal Organizations. This is where you start to think that this issue of the Star Frontiersman is going to be the Tom and Jedion show. This issue is probably the high water mark of my involvement in the Star Frontiersman magazine. As not long after this, Tom Stevens and I would organize the Frontier Explorer magazine. But back to this article. It's nothing more than a catalog of every cult, cadre, and criminal organization ever created in the frontier from any source. So it's 6 pages of a comprehensive catalog of these kinds of organizations. It's current up until 2011. But new cults and cadres are not as popular a fan creation as say, like new playable species or new equipment. So it's a good resource. It is a good resource, and you're going to be missing a few things. But this is not a bad resource to go to. And we might have some further news on this later on, but I will put that at the end of the video. No, scratch that. Let me just show you what I've been working on. So this is what I've been working on. I've been working on an updated catalog of all of the cults, cadres, and criminal organizations right through Frontier Explorer number 36. And so that is this product that I've put up on a drive-through. It's not yet been approved, and I hope it will be approved by Friday for this video. And so I will have a little blurb at the very end about it. But I thought an extra, it'll be pay what you want, free, download it for free type of thing. And so I just thought a little extra giveaway from the Star Frontiers gamer to you. This is what I've been working on this week instead of working on the new issue of Star Frontiersman Volume 2. Bad person that I am. So I just realized I did not include this creating an octopus or spy terrorist network material in the Cults and Cadres update. This was kind of an appendix tacked on to the Cults and Cadres catalog that was submitted here. But I have never been able to figure out where I got this material from, and I remember it from the 80s. And I remember it being part of a spy RPG. I thought it was top secret, but it does not appear to be. And it showed how to put together this network where you would have, say, the mastermind was a KGB agent, and then underneath him you'd have operatives, which would be Cuban intelligence service agents doing things. But over here you might have in the network a drug dealer, an American drug dealer in Florida. So you'd be putting all of these different cults and cadres and criminal organizations into this network. And it was a great way to create an adventure where each phase of the adventure really is about uncovering one of the aspects of the adventure. Like, there was an assassin, and so the player characters are investigating the assassin, and then that leads, because they found the communication chain, that leads to his handler, and maybe the trail might go cold because somebody was a cutout. Well, somebody else in this thing does something, and that like the bomber might plant a bomb and and detonate a bomb. And so then now if the trail has gone stale, the player characters are now investigating the bomber. And so this was a good way. And my Founders Day adventure that I ran group of people through as part of the the COVID experience playing online was very much that. I had this whole network laid out, and I kind of knew what was happening, and so they could totally derail my adventure, and the trail could go cold, and I would just have another part of the Octopus Network do something, and then all right, now we're investigating from this direction again. And it was a good way to do it, and it seemed like they were having fun. I know that it worked well for me, that I had fun bringing that adventure. So creating the Spy Octopus Network is here. There's a diagram here showing how I put together that Founders Day adventure. And, so you have, mastermind, administrator, agents, operatives, cutouts. You've got communications are direct, transmitted, or drop. They can be one way or two way. I use a lot of the FFF, which is the Free Frontiersman Foundation, and SDC is Silver Death Cult. I use these in here. So this just shows you how I would set up using all of these cults and cadres. It's a great way to do it. And it makes for a decent, it makes for a good adventure. Next up, we have Jerg's quarterly updates to the Seeker Missile. This is a one-page review of the Seeker Missile. by Gary Cliff and Georgie and B.D. Saradwin. The article creates a fake magazine, which I like here. This Jerg's Quarterly. It's a little bit blurry, and it got me thinking. Remember back in the 90s, the greeting card template programs where you can create a greeting card, and so and you put the information in there, and it turned it so that it printed as one page, and then you just folded it twice, and it made a little quarter-page greeting card. This type of thing, it got me thinking with this fake magazine. If you did one of those greeting cards where it's just everything's on one page, but it's all oriented as per how things would be once you do the two folds. You fold in half and then fold in half again. And then the magazine image is on the front, and you open it. You got 2 pages. It would be the stats and the cost, and maybe you put a little something on the back. And so you could make, it makes me wonder if there isn't a value to making fake magazines, say like here, Jerg's Defense Quarterly would introduce new Nighthawk stuff, but the characters are at a corporate office waiting to get a briefing, and they're in the waiting room, and you say that there is a popular robotics magazine there, and if one of the players picks it up, I just hand them the magazine, and it's got some new robot equipment in it. They might consider buying and adding to the robots. If they don't, they don't. But it's just a little handout that you could give maybe at the beginning of an adventure. I think it would be a good way to do it. Back to the article. Basically, the article is just a review and update of the Seeker missile. Next up, we have Doc McGee by William Douglas. It's a one-page brief on the NPC Doc Angus McGee, who is a free trader with an ag ship, the Star Plantation, who travels the frontier setting, selling food, medicine, and some specialty homegrown items. He's a potential contact and helper to the PCs, at a price, but he might also be a source of plot hooks. And I love this idea. I think this is a great idea. Next up, we have androids as a non-player character race. And this is written by Victor Gil de Rubio. It's a 1.5-page presentation of androids similar to the species description in Alpha Dawn. It's kind of like if you wanted to have a data in your game as an NPC. So that's what this is targeted at. Next. After that, we have this little article on weapons laws in the frontier, and it has a little bit of a flavor text here at the beginning. So the flavor text that comes with it's kind of interesting. The guy had a permit to carry, but it was a interstellar permit to carry. It was not the proper permit to carry for being on the planet. And so the police officer here is like, that's a pan-galactic issued permit, not valid in the city limits, without a judge's vouchsafe, which you don't have. Ordinance requires energy weapons to have fixed internal power supplies, no external hookups. So, I mean, this guy's just getting hammered because he's violated so many different laws. Depending on the game and the extra granularity, gun laws can really work for you. If you're playing like a classic commerce campaign where the PCs have a ship and they just travel system to system, it may or may not be something you want to do. If they're just staying on the space station, they rarely come down to the surface. It's something you could gloss over. Starship Combat Casualty System by Scott Mulder. This is quite extensive. And now, since I didn't run many Nighthawks campaigns, I didn't pay attention to this or play test it. However, knowing Scott and his usual work, it looks fairly thorough. It covers collateral damage, casualty determination, minimum crew, rescue operations, loss of control, crew restoration rates, and medical facilities. So he was very thorough in putting it together. But again, I got to be honest, I just never play tested it. So Star Frontiers URS by Victor Gildarubio. It's a one-page review and promo of his Star Frontiers URS setting, or universal role-playing system. It's a comprehensive rule system and setting set 100 years in the future of the frontier. It's intriguing, but I didn't get into it largely because at the time I was so focused on being dialed into the canon setting as a fanzine editor. And that's where my interest lay. The link to his URS is still valid, and there's a lot of material there. The setting presents as a 700 light year wide setting, so it's a bit of Traveler or Star Wars feel to it. We've got some Exploding Dice by Chris Harper. He's just introducing the Exploding Dice rule here. You've seen this in other RPGs. In fact, I was just reading one for review that included an Exploding Dice mechanic into a BX type of rule set. So it's fairly common. It's out there. You also have an Imploding Dice mechanic attached to it. And then next you have Radiation Sickness on the Frontier by yours truly again. It's an article that reviews the canon rules concerning radiation and radiation sickness. I then propose a radiation sickness mechanic that matches the poison, infection, and disease mechanics in the med skill. I then, more or less for flavor, I created symptoms by species for the Core 4, the Sathar, and the Rim 3. So I tried to be fairly thorough with it, and there is that. So if you ever want to irradiate the player characters, you've got some rules for it. So this is a great article, and I absolutely love it, partly because of the illustrations, but it's called Trade Goods and Commodities of the Frontier, Part 1 by Alan Trussell. It's a fantastic resource and a great addition to the Frontier. Basically, it catalogs plants that are trade goods and raised commercially in the Frontier. Most entries have an illustration that's done by Shell. The illustrations are gorgeous. Each item has a planet it's grown on and its cost for buying it by the ton, which supports a commerce campaign if you're running player characters on a freighter. These trade goods, they rate among my favorites. Then number 13. So, I mean, just look at some of this artwork. Isn't this awesome? Great illustrations by Shell. This guy does great work. I cannot praise him enough. I mean, it's just page upon page of this stuff. And next up, D100 table. This is a D100 table of book titles and adventure titles for in the setting. So like player characters are sitting in a dentist waiting room waiting to get their broken tooth pulled or fixed or something stupid along those lines. And you just need a book on a bookshelf or on a table in a waiting room, or or they're looting, they're going through a ship and they're just kind of looting, and all right, what did we find in this room? You could just roll up a book. You find a book, and it's so it's a D100 table of books that you would find in the in the setting, like right here, number 23, Master of the Spectral Pirate. How about 31, Shrieking Gears? Some of these are a little silly, but 66, The Sacred City. That could end up becoming a plot hook. The players are like, oh, really? What's that about? And they start digging into it. You're like, there's something about a sacred city on Osak or on Volturnus. Oh, really? Where's that? They start looking into that. It just becomes an adventure hook for writing more adventure. So, it's one of those things. You print it, 3-ring hole punch it, put it in your binder. Next up, Starlaw Intelligence Reports. And this is a starfrontiers.us community collaboration. So it's a bunch of us just threw things out, and it was all compiled into Starlaw Intelligence Reports. But basically what it really is it's just some NPC bad guys. But these are like reports as being reported by Starlaw agents on, this is, be on the lookout for these guys. So this is a great, you're looking for a baddie to throw into your campaign. There you go. Number 15, another Alan Trussell entry here. It's called So You're Carl the Vrusk, Names for Star Frontiers Aliens. And this is an examination of Dralicide's Vrusk and Yazarian names. He gives example male names, example female names, example titles and honorifics, and clan names here for the Vrusk. Same treatment for the other species. It's just a handy, if somebody's struggling to have it, come up with a name, this is your resource. And then we get a book review of the Perry Rhodan series. And this is done by William Douglas, and it seems to have been a bigger thing in Germany than in America, because I came across, as I was digging into this a little bit, that there seems to be a lot of these books that are in German. So I don't know if it was originally in English or originally in German, but it does seem to be a big deal in German. And this link here for perryrhodan.us, that still works. You can go there and check out Perry Rhodan stuff. But this was proposed as, boy, this is Star Frontiers in feel. So it's not explicitly Star Frontiers, but if you're looking for Star Frontiers fiction, here you go. This is a big possibility. Next up is equipment. And it was various submitters, new robots, trauma recovery robot, a conversion of the DS or deep sleep pistol from Logan Run. There are new whips, an electric whips, and some new computers in here. I want to take a moment and review one of these equipment items specifically. It's the Nighthawk's munition called Harm, with a subtitle of You Don't Want to Be in Its Way. That was just me being a little cheeky. But HARM is an acrostic that stands for Hypervelocity Anti-Ship Reaction Drive Missile. I was watching Future Weapons. I was watching the show Future Weapons and was inspired by a real-world anti-tank bomblet system. And so these munitions were designed for using in the assault rocket battery and the rocket battery systems in the Starship portion of the game. They're actually intended to be a one hit, one kill on a fighter craft. And the rules mechanic for the advanced game table in Nighthawks tends to ensure that because they have an advanced table modifier that tends to shift the result away from like an engine hit and into hull, so that you're more than likely to just wipe out a fighter with this type of munition. There's no change to the firing system. It's just you're paying for a different reload. You're paying for a HARM assault rocket reload or a HARM rocket battery reload. Part of the fluff is that they were developed in by the Huma. It was actually developed by the CFM against the Huma, because the Huma were liking to use a lot of fighter craft. Now, if you're going to use it with the basic game damage system, then you just basically make it, if it hits, it's a one shot, one kill in the basic game. Next up, we have Catix Zhang Zin's Field Guide to Frontier Creatures Volume 2 by Alan Trussell. This article is more creatures with stat blocks, and it's spread all across. They're spread all across the frontier. So the stat blocks include the home world, the native world. You've got great illustrations from Shell again. I mean, look at this stuff. Gorgeous. It's just your eye wants to drink it up. I love these. They're very soft. It's like he did these originally in colored pencil, but they've been scanned into the computer and they just look fabulous. I mean, just a whole menagerie. So it's building a little bit of a monster manual for Star Frontiers. So I absolutely love this particular article. Next up is spaceships, and it's the Streel Raven class Corvette. Now, this is a full-blown, almost tech manual on the Corvette, the pirate Corvette seen in the Warriors of White Light module. This is put together by Gary Cliff, BD Saradwin, and Georgie. And so you've got the full Nighthawks treatment, and then a beautiful cross-section of the ship. And then deck plans. I mean, there's nothing left out here other than, what's hiding under the bed in the captain's quarters. I mean, everything's covered. This is just a well done put together. You could just print these pages out, staple them, and say, tech manual for the Streel class Corvette. Done. So favorite article, love having that. Next up, we have a system brief for the Cassidine system by Alan Trussell. It's well organized with a brief history, discussion of the people and places of interest, and then a system chart that is well done with detailed notes on the planets. And there's a lot of eye appeal to this system chart. I mean, absolutely gorgeous looking. Each planet's got an individual write-up, so he's fairly thorough with it, and I definitely appreciate that. And then we've got the Kai Cat 2 vrusk Master Magician by Eric Windsor, and this is some fiction by his I believe this. Yeah, the Wriggling Brothers Circus was added in, and so this is some nice setting fluff presented as fiction. I always like Eric's material. And then lastly, a really almost creepy piece of frontier fiction called Bug Hunt, which is quasi, when I say creepy, it's like creepy like Call of Cthulhu creepy. Not quite Call of Cthulhu, but it has two mercenaries who have a little encounter with the cliques. And Eric Billy Goat Johnson wrote that. So no, I'm not going to do any spoiler alerts on it, but I thought it was really, really cool piece of fiction, and it was one of my favorites. And then finally, we get the classifieds at the back. I don't know why this one is so dark, but it just is. But again, more classifieds. Again, I love these. I find little uses for them in game, like just slipping them to the players. Oh yeah, this is what you found. And it just happens to be a classified ad, and they could pursue that, and it might become an adventure hook, or it might just be about a new piece of equipment. They might be like, oh, that gun sounds interesting. I might buy it for my character. So again, classifieds are always awesome. So there we have it, Star Frontiersman number 17. And I want to thank you for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great, and I will see you in the frontier. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the section on cults and cadres, I'm going to have a link in the show notes, and it's going to be to this product. Now, if it's not live, if it's not approved on drive-through, this is what you're going to see. Sorry, this title's not available because we're viewing it as a customer. Switch over to publisher. It'll be something like this, although probably some of these red flags will be gone. It is a free to download, pay what you want. If you want to throw a tip in the tip jar for me, that's great. But it is free for you. It is my gift to you. It's, fans of the frontier. So it just is a comprehensive guide to all of the cults, so you can just have them in one place, one document, and not have to look them up in a million different, not a million, but, half dozen different fan magazines. So there you go. If it's not approved and ready for download on Friday, all I can say is check it back again by the beginning of next week. But this gift is there for you. I just wanted to get this video done and in the can so that I could get it edited and have it ready for Friday. So that's what I've been working on. Not working on the stuff I should be. But this is Tom for Star Frontiers Gamer, and I'll see you in the frontier.